Did you know that camo patterns are licensed and merchandised? Have you ever thought about how hard it is to run an e-commerce site selling all across the world? Do people still wear Crocs? All that and more today on the Marketing Madmen podcast.
They say marketing is a madman's game. So now we turn it over to the Marketing Madman with Nick Constantino and Trip Job.
Happy Saturday. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here at the Battery with the Marketing Madmen. And, we've got a fun one today.
That we do.
Yeah, I mean, getting into e-commerce, I get a lot of questions from time to time about, hey, how do I make, how do I sell this, or how do I do a better job, and what are some of the tips and secrets of e-commerce? And I think a lot of people think, if they have an idea, then the internet is the place to go.
Yeah. For me, my biggest takeaway from e-commerce is it is the most annoying type of thing to advertise, because once they start showing up in your feed, whether it be social media, you get bombarded with messaging. It's like if you look for a pair of shoes one time, that retargeting is following you across the world trying to get you to buy it. And like, how do you walk that line? Because the more they do that, the actual less I want to purchase something. I get visibly and physically frustrated about something that I was just looking like, and so I think e-commerce is a hard one. I also think that in today's day and age, without a e-commerce strategy, you are dead in the water.
Well, absolutely. And I think do you really have a brand? Do you have something people want, or are you just trying to get rid of it?
Yeah.
All right. And I think, we still see people I kind of have an idea, or I saw this, and then they think that, well, the easiest way to get out there is just put it on e-commerce and I'll see if it works.
Yeah, and I think you're right. But at some point, when you do want to scale, more of a brand strategy always comes into play.
Right.
Like there's these always flash in the pans. Like I know On Shoes was a great example.
Yeah.
It started out somewhat going viral and only e-commerce, but they market now. There's ads everywhere. They do it more. So if you are clear, as we usually talk about, if you are clear with your business goals and your goal is to grow quickly and bang out a quick ROI, e-commerce and the way they market and the retargeting and social media is an easy way to do it. The question is, what is the plan to sustain, build, and scale the brand? And usually that's when you have to have a more robust marketing plan.
Right. And then, how do you work with, the various platforms out there? I mean, remember we had Dr. Sandy Chapp on, and obviously she's done a lot of work with third-party resellers, the Amazons and others of the world. And, there's a lot of different things that you really have to think long and hard about. And are you willing to, some cases, are you willing to give up some of your profits to work with the Amazons of the world?
Yep.
Or do you try to go it alone and go against them?
Yeah. And I think even before you have those conversations is, are you hiring a Foxconn to just make the goods for you and just slapping a new logo on them? Do you have a manufacturing company set out that you're just buying a product and rebranding it? I mean, again, it is so complicated. And, in the next segment, I had a chance to sit with the guys from Realtree. Realtree is a hunting and fishing and lifestyle brand. For those that don't know, they actually sell the licenses to the Camo patterns. Okay, so I was born in Queens. There was no grass, let alone hunting. Like, I don't know what the hell these guys are talking about. But as I found out the business, they started with that. So before they were e-commerce, they were licensing the Camo. Okay, so just for some idea in the conversation, you'll find out they've been working on their most recent pattern for 4 years. Wow. To come out with their most recent license. So it is how that changed is now all of a sudden they are the e-commerce site. So Crocs rents their pattern. Well, they're reselling Crocs through their e-commerce site because it's everything holistically that is Realtree. Right. So they make their own stuff, they license their stuff out. But again, their e-commerce strategy came 30 years after the business was modeled. Right. And that's where this strategy comes in. And that's what I found fascinating about it. Besides learning about bow hunting, which I'm definitely going to do, by the way. It was fascinating
to learn. I can hook you up. I know.
Oh, yeah. Hey. I'm not, it's not whether being against guns or not, but if you can kill an animal with a bow and arrow, you deserve to eat it. Let's leave it at that. I don't care what anyone says. That is primal stuff.
Just let me know. You want to go up to Wisconsin
that is primal
in the fall,
stuff.
I can get you set up. So,
that is primal stuff.
Well, one of the things, and it's interesting, I just had this week from a longtime client a note about, ButcherBox. And obviously they've been very successful.
Yep.
But as you look at it, as they've grown that business, online business, so there was some articles talking about what they've done. And I think this is a question I get a lot is, hey, if we're going to do this, how much do I need to market? Well, guess what? They have pretty much, since they really kicked off, they spend about 20% of their revenues on marketing and advertising. That's huge. And they admit that. But the reason is they didn't want to be a $20 million brand. They're north of,
yes,
they're 9 figures now. And so that was part of the point, is they had to keep doing that, and they invested their money into the marketing and advertising and e-commerce. That's extremely high, but there's a lot of people who go, okay, well, I'll spend 1%, 2%, and they think, you can do it on a shoestring.
Yeah, and I think one of the things people don't understand is when they give $100 off, that is a marketing expense. $100 off on your first box means they are losing money. It is a loss leader on that original one. So that is actually a marketing expense. So while you may not be like, oh, I don't see ButcherBox that often. Well, every time you get $100 off, that is a marketing cost because it is below the transaction price to get you hooked on getting this recurring revenue, which I also think in the next couple of years is going to really come to bite people in the ass. People are looking at their phones and bills more than ever now and see this recurring revenue, and they're like, man, I had this stuff sitting in the freezer. It's going to change. I do know one thing about ButcherBox is that their business changed so drastically during COVID that it changed how they do business and put them in a position where they can do that. So people didn't want to go to the supermarket. They are afraid to go to the supermarket. So ButcherBox, they ran out of meat pretty much from it. But I think, when it comes down to it, all those things are great, but you need a logistical, strong e-commerce platform and strategy. You need a good user interface before you could even start marketing. And I think where people go wrong is they allocate money to marketing before, in beta phase, let's call it, before the product is there. That logistics, your delivery has to be on time. I mean, what if someone's going to eat on a Saturday and plan on having this meal and they say it's going to come on Friday and it comes on Sunday? You just destroyed your consumer experience completely. So I do think that ButcherBox is a great example, but I think ButcherBox also was created with so much competition. I mean, those delivery services are a dime a dozen nowadays.
Well, and they're competing with local players delivery, and they're competing with local players that are brick and mortar.
Yeah, so, the supermarkets.
Exactly. And so they've got mass competition locally, brick and mortar. They got niche local competition, brick and mortar, and they also have local competition that are essentially remote. So yeah, they're getting competed. It's hard. And the competition is going out to dinner.
Yeah, and
I mean they're all the way around. They have to spend the money
with revenge dining and all that stuff. But I also think a lot of people tried to go with the Amazon model, which was, if you remember, and look, this is before sales tax started chopping everything. Amazon was inexpensive. Amazon is not even close to the least expensive or anything anymore. It is the most convenient. So their thought is that if they could hook you with
convenient and secure.
And secure, sure. Yeah. But if they could hook you with that, here's the problem, okay? If you are a savvy shopper, okay, you can order ButcherBox and its competitors for 6 months at $100 off. And then by the time you finish that round, they start recouponing you again. So if you can play it right, and it's not time consuming.
I just got Factor again in the mail, another and email. And, I did it originally for my parents just because to kind of help them out a little bit and set up, make it easier at their stage. And, it's not a bad program, but if I look back at what the real cost for them were versus what it was for us.
There it is.
I mean,
there it is.
Oh my God! They want to get people hooked, but I'm there's just.
And then they
have to be losing money.
I also, I was off Facebook for 3 or 4 years when my daughter was born. Lots of reasons, mostly because I have no shame, but she doesn't need to have her face plastered on that stuff her whole life. So I came back to Facebook and I was like, what the hell happened? First of all of the girls that I used to look at on Facebook got fat. So let's just throw that out there just to break the monotony of the show. Secondly, the next thing that happened was every other thing was an ad. So in my head, I'm like, what just happened here? This used to be the best place to go. And now all of a sudden in 4 short years, what happened to Facebook? So I also think you got to be careful with your marketing strategy, how you go about people with your retargeting. And again, the Realtree guys are a little bit of a different story, but it was fascinating to talk with them about why the new website was important, what they plan to achieve. Because again, without a user-friendly website, without a back of house billing returns, you cannot market. And I think we've all made the mistake of buying 1 or 2 things from somewhere that was not fully developed out yet, and you'll never buy from there again. So
I'm not sure if this is a segue or not, but as a single guy,
are you going back to fat women? What's happening?
Yeah, no, I would say so as a single guy. So the one solution to that is if you go to the online dating platforms, they're not fat. The pictures are still from 8 to 10 years ago.
Right. That's why. So that's the. You know what? I was talking to somebody today. We were talking about scooters. The 2 things I missed out. I've never ridden an electric scooter. I never got to be in online dating. I'm the worst millennial ever.
Well, guess what? You're in a good place, at least with one of them, and I'm sure we can go downtown. We'll get you a scooter.
You know what? To be fair, I don't remember ever being on a scooter, if we're being fair.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there was a scooter and a Waffle House incident somewhere.
Somewhere.
No, I mean, I think that, there's so many different things that I think businesses, they jump, and I think that's the problem. They think it's easy, and they jump immediately to trying to be online, and hey, this is a way to pick up some additional revenue. And look, it can be.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how you're going to do it when the dog finally catches the car, then that's where you're going to have trouble.
Yeah, and it's all about the brand. Realtree can do it because there's so much demand for that brand that it only makes sense to do e-commerce. If you do the e-commerce, how are you going to build a brand? It's too short term of a thing to build a long-term brand. So the strategies have to change, and I think that's why e-commerce should be part of your strategy, not your entire strategy.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned some of the things that. Do you know how to build it out? How are your ops going to work? I mean, I had experience this summer. I ended up buying from one of the large retail brands. I mean, they got brick and mortar, they got retail, they've got things left and right, and it was a couple of different items. First off, I didn't have to pay shipping at all, and there were 3 items coming in 3 different packages from 3 different locations. All right, granted, national brand, but I'm like, okay, great. Well, one of them, after about a week, not only did it not show, but I had the tracking notice, but all it kept saying was sitting in Atlanta. So, So, finally I called them back and they go, yeah, we don't know where it is either. We know it left, and so they credited me for it.
Yeah, but that's back
a week
house.
And a half ago, 5 weeks after it showed up.
Yeah, you won twice. But
I won twice.
But it was a bad experience. You would have never bought from them again. So what's it worth?
Right.
What's it worth? It also shows you, I hate to be that guy, but how freaking cheap the stuff that you're being sent is.
Yeah.
Now that we have China so involved in these garments cost nothing. It is all of the marketing and the shipping and the logistics that cost, which again is not a great experience, man. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I miss brick and mortar. Do you remember the good old days of Nordstrom? You could bring a pair of jeans that you ran over with a car and lit on fire with acid, and they would take it back and give you another pair of jeans.
I think the Realtree guys are getting a little scared right now. But when we come back from break, we'll dive in a little bit with them and learn more about their business and how they've approached the e-commerce is the key part of their model. So you're listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3.
This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Today, I'm happy to have my buddies here from Realtree. For those that don't know, most of you do, all of you should. Realtree is an outdoor and lifestyle brand. And I have Jim McGinn and Tyler Jordan here, and we're going to talk about how the brand came to be, how they market, and how the heck they got someone like Austin Riley to talk on their behalf. So, gentlemen, how we doing? Welcome.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great. And, in my other hat as a sales guy, we just came out of our first meeting to start off the campaign. And to start it, I'm unbelievably grateful that you brought as many people as you did into that meeting. I'm happy to meet you all. It was overwhelming, but I'm happy to meet you all. And just for some context, we have one of our on-air talent speaking on their behalf. And our goal was to bombard him with so much information that he looked confused and dumbfounded. And I think we accomplished our goal. What do you guys think?
Excellent. Yeah, well, the good thing about Hunter, I mean, I've known him for or Hudson, I'm sorry, but he's obviously a big outdoorsman and hunter, and have known him for the last, several years. So, I think he at least is somewhat familiar with our brand, but it was definitely a good meeting and presentation. I think just a good opportunity that, Jim, brought us all up here today to learn a little bit more about y'all's business and kind of the reach that y'all have. I think, us integrating more with, especially the Georgia listener is something we want to do a lot more of. So just really excited about the partnership between Realtree and 680.
Yeah, good. We're excited also. It's amazing. Hudson can have defensive linemen running at him and screaming in his face, and he can throw a football. But with all that information coming, he somehow looked like he was like, uh-oh, what just happened? So funny how that works. But so, Jim, let's start with you. Why don't you real quickly tell everyone your title and what your day-to-day looks like at Realtree?
Sure. So I'm Jim McGinn. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Realtree. Every day's a little bit different, which is refreshing. But what we've really tried to focus on here over the past 18 months has been a more direct connection with the consumer. So naturally, you kind of think and gravitate towards e-commerce as far as how do you have that connection. But the program that we're talking about with you guys is certainly an extension of that effort, right? I mean, I think we've got thousands of customers all over the country, all over the world, but the fun part with Hudson is here's a hometown guy. Yeah. We're a Georgia-based company. And so how do you, almost looking at it like college football recruiting, how do you own your own backyard? Love it. And you guys obviously, I think, create and extend a platform that really helps us maybe reach people in a different way. Yeah. That are familiar with our brand, but maybe haven't engaged as deep down that funnel that we talked about today. So for us on the day-to-day, what we're really trying to do is connect social, email, text, editorial, conservation, ambassadors, all these things that we do. You can move in 10 different directions pretty quickly. We're trying to bring some alignment and consistency to that. And so from a day-to-day standpoint, I'd say that's where a lot of our focus and effort is. Yeah, that's not an easy job. So when you say and just so everybody realizes, it is easy to get lost in the shuffle of being transactional in e-commerce because it becomes a price sensitivity. You don't win with price sensitivities. You win with being part of somebody's life, becoming your own lifestyle brand. And I will say, just from what I've met from meeting you all and just from what I know about the brand, you have etched yourself into the way into being that lifestyle. People associate you with the lifestyle, with the camo, with the prints, with those things. So what you have done to date has been a hell of an accomplishment. And I think the path that you're trying to chart forward, as hard as it is going to be an interesting one. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So Tyler, how about you, bud?
Yeah, so I handle the day-to-day a lot of the content and conservation side of the business. The conservation side, as far as giving back, is a big part of our brand and kind of what we do. As far as Whitetails Unlimited, Turkeys for Tomorrow, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, CCA on the fishing side. I mean, ensuring that, the next generation of hunters will have, that wild game to hunt for hopefully years to come, is a big part of, kind of our MO and what we're all about. So, on the content side, my dad's, so he started the company back in 1986. I think the Realtree Outdoor Show, launched in the early 90s, but, the content for monster bucks and, traveling all over the country, hunting big game from turkey to deer to elk. We're carrying some of that along still on our digital platforms. Realtree Road Trips is one of our shows that we're doing right now, and so we're about to be full steam ahead. This is kind of we're getting ready for our busy time of year. So from September,
you never know by the temperature right now, but yeah,
yeah. So from
I don't know even know if the deer are out, but it's 99 degrees and humid out. They're hiding as much as.
Yeah, they're moving late right now. So we start September 1, going to Nebraska. End of September, going elk hunting with Dad. 1st of October, going elk hunting with Riley Green, country music singer. Cool. And then Austin Riley, hopefully it'll be after winning a World Series this year again.
Wow, where's the wood? Somebody knock loud. Yeah, everybody at home, knock on wood.
So hopefully once that's done, we'll get on a couple of trips with him. I think he's looking to go to Louisiana, Kansas, and maybe Nebraska this year. So excited to get back in the woods with him.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I think the conservation and, there's a fine line between what you can say and what you can do, because if you do all this wonderful work and you're telling everybody, then is it really charity? Is it really? Yeah. But at the same time, I think that the industry, like most things, is so politicized right now that you're going to lose no matter what, right? Sure. When you're talking about keeping the future clear for other hunters and giving back, no one talks about that. They talk about how horrible hunting is and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So I think that there's a fine line, and I hope that's something we can help with to be your mouthpiece to get that out there, because it is really, really, really important, and I think that's what differentiates a e-commerce site from a brand and someone who is that what they give to the community, what they care about, the culture that they live by, and hopefully we can make sure we relay that information for you. So let's get into the weeds a little bit. So let's talk about April. We had a new website. Right. The new website is up and running. First, why did we do a new website, and what was the expected goal out of it, and are we getting close to what you guys tried to get out of the new website?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that went into that decision, and at the same time, it was real simple, right? So, the direct-to-consumer model in terms of e-com and transactions themselves, we were at a point where we had two separate websites. We essentially had our content and our editorial, and we had our e-com site.
Right, they ain't buying from the content site.
Totally separate, right? So what we had was somewhat of a touch-and-go website. If you wanted to, learn about the rut or the anticipated, season and what the outlook is, we had you covered. But once we had you interested and engaged, we kind of lost visibility of, okay, what happened? Did they go and try to buy something, or did they go and try to learn
And every
more?
time you add a click, you lose people, especially if you're going to an external site. That's you need to be as simply live self-contained as possible.
Yeah. So I think, taking the friction out of the existing landscape was a big part of that. I think the luxury that we have is, as a credit to the team and almost 40 years of content, video, stories.
Yeah.
We have the demand, we have the traffic.
And I bet you those archives are awesome. Some of the old video of old trips and stuff, I bet you that stuff is as gold as the new stuff is if you look back. I bet and there's always that nostalgia, right? I mean, shoot, you're in you're in an early 90s. If I see another pair of Jenkos, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, you're in that early 90s time frame now. So I bet you some of that old stuff is awesome to look at too.
Yeah, I think Jim can probably speak to it a little bit, but I think that's been one of the it's a good problem to have, but there's so much content that they're, working through even still with the website, just sorting through all of that. I mean, it's 40 years of history, the editorial, the content, the camouflage patterns. That team has definitely got their hands full, but they've done a really good job. And to Jim's credit, I mean, it's just been a team effort, building this website and getting it put together.
Yeah, and I think what we've learned is, there's so many new processes that need to exist that maybe didn't prior.
Yeah.
With this being a focus of ours. So, we talked about it yesterday, and we talked a little bit about the meeting that we had. With one site, with one destination now, there's so much more that we can offer the customer.
Yep.
And we have licensees that, whether it's OtterBox phone cases, Crocs, Ridge wallets, all the apparel and the hunting stuff that you know us for, fishing gear. Yeah. The goal and, kind of the mandate really as a company has been, we're going to bring these licensees with us as far as the e-com journey. So we don't necessarily want to be in the business of going and creating all of these things, but we'll have logo wear, we'll have graphic tees. But if you've got a Nomad or you have a Bandit or you have OtterBox, what better place to make their product available? And so they've really
now you're just leaving past just your own brand. You're becoming that lifestyle function where people can get other things. And most companies avoid that because they want to sell their own stuff. So good for you guys for going out there, embracing the licensee portion of it, because what you're doing is making life easier for the consumer. And that ultimately is what pays dividends in the long run, is making life easier for the consumer.
100%. And I think, Tyler knows this better than I do. When somebody signs a licensing agreement and wants to do business with Realtree, I think one of the first things they ask is, hey, how can you guys help put us up in lights? How can you promote us? And, what better way to do it than make their product available at Realtree.com. Mm-hmm. And then that naturally becomes part of our email marketing, our text campaigns, our social media, and kind of goes back to some of that cohesiveness and alignment where we're trying to take all these things and have a consistent message that lines up with, the hunt schedules or the shows that you host and some of the conservation efforts that we do have. So it's a lot, but it's work worth doing.
And I have to imagine, right, like, you have a brand since '86, means that there's people out there that know about you looking for you. The new website had to be a way to kind of capture everything, a catch-all. So whether it's the lifestyle part or the consumption part, you have to capture social media. And if you're working with two old sites, they were never built to capture all of that demand coming in.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping now that you've unified everything, the radio makes more sense because it's easier for people to find you. And if they click through social media, they're coming to you with an intention of purchasing. And I have to imagine that part of that design was working out a lot of those kinks, so your site was optimal to reach the most people as possible that were looking for you and trying to find you.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think Tyler can speak to some of the things we're working on in terms of, we talked about some of the legacy patterns that we've brought back, but a lot of the stuff that we're starting to do, you guys in this partnership being an example, we felt like it was not worth necessarily activating it until we had kind of our house in order with the new website. So with a lot of the Advantage Classic and the original and things that people are looking for, it's been fun to see that.
It has.
traffic.
The way I describe Realtree, they're like, I've had people like, man, what does Realtree do? I think we're a licensing company, of course, first, but we're almost a marketing media agency in a way too, because you have over 1,500 licensees. When you have Crocs, companies like Nike and all these other these big brands that you think, man, why would they want to license Realtree? But it gives them authenticity, back to that consumer that lives out an outdoor lifestyle, which is really what, we're about. So, bringing back some of these vintage patterns, I know has been a lot of fun for me because, a lot of these patterns that, I grew up, hunting my first deer, turkey, duck, wearing the old school Realtree Original Advantage Classic. And so having a place that we can kind of bring some of these patterns back, semi-exclusively, at least for right now on Realtree.com has been a lot of fun. But definitely lots going on.
That makes a ton of sense when you put it that way, because honestly, like the Crocs consumer and the people that are buying Crocs with your print on them are probably very different consumers.
That's right.
So when you think of yourself as a marketing medium, you are opening new avenues for these products because of the brand you represent, which is what marketing is. So that is I think that's an excellent way to put it. And I think the new site shows that functionality a lot more, because I remember when we were initial talking was right as that new site was coming out, and I saw the previous site and I saw some of the disconnect. And as a marketing company, one of our biggest problems, we spent the first 5 years of when I was at this company fighting digital, saying, don't do digital, do us. And then I was like, guys, this is a really bad idea, because here's the problem. If you don't have the right SEO or the right pay-per-click, a million people can search for you. They're going to find your competitor or they're not going to find you. So that means the radio is worthless. So I appreciate the fact that you got your ducks in a row, because now I know that when we put our mechanisms and our tried and true principles of live reads and advertising, that people will actually find the product. And usually when you do those things together, they're going to buy the product and carry out the activity you want to. So I'm very excited about it. So how has the website design gone so far? Are you seeing new numbers? Do you have first party data, or is commerce up? Talk about some of the past couple of months, because you've been 4 or 5 months now that's been running. So talk about what it's been like, and then let's get away from the boring marketing stuff, the boring website stuff, and let's talk more about what the plans are for the future.
Sure. Yeah, and we met as a team yesterday and just kind of took a day to get out of the office, and kind of a belated halftime for us to kind of look before these next 4 or 5 months when you guys are wide open on the road and say, okay, what just happened the past 7 months and what's ahead the next 5? So to answer your question, first quarter, I would say pre-launch was pretty much flat to a little bit down, right?
From the year prior.
From the year prior. Second quarter was quite strong.
Okay.
And leading into July, we're at triple digit year over year.
Damn.
Percentage-wise growth. So that's been fun.
The investment in the time and money was worth it so far.
Yeah, big time.
I think so. And I think the other thing we're trying to be sensitive to is obviously dollars and cents are important and that they're easy to manage and measure. But I also think it's just the experience for the consumer, like finding things, or if you want to go read about a pattern and then see the products that our licensees have in those patterns, or logo wear that we have, it's just a better presentation. And so I think we under-delivered, candidly, if we're talking about the .com experience. And now as we're learning and getting this data under our belt, we're just trying to double down on the things that the consumer is telling us what they like. Yeah. So now we're just trying to make sure we activate around those interests.
There are some advantages into not being the first one in too. You can see the mistakes other people make, and you can draw a pattern of, hey, this is what's really good, this is what's bad, this is what we like, this is what we don't like. So being first in is not always the best thing in the world, especially if you guys were already in a position to grow and you're seeing that kind of growth now. That means maybe the stars did align and maybe it is the right thing. So one of the things you guys talk about a lot, obviously we initially met and started our conversation with Austin Riley's golf tournament. So I think that kills two birds with one stone. You got your charitable component, you're giving back to the community, but also your influencers. Okay, so let's talk about the influencers. Okay. Let's talk about, everybody wants to do influencer marketing. I mean, it is, if you look at NIL and all, it's crazy out there. Everyone thinks, and my personal thought is it can be done right and it can be done wrong, right? Using Austin Riley attached to a lifestyle-based and charity-based event is an excellent way to market, because you're doing a lot, right? Slapping Austin's face on a product and saying buy this is fleeting, because they're going to just buy the next thing and move on to the next thing. So talk about how you guys approach influencer marketing, some of the best campaigns you've done, and why you see it, what the path forward you see is using it for the future.
Well, feel free, Jim, to kind of chime in here, but I'll just kind of speak to Austin specifically. That kind of, at least that partnership started out of just a personal relationship between him and I. I mean, Austin is probably, a lot of Braves fans know, he's a big outdoorsman, big hunter. We've been partnered with Team Red, White, and Blue, which is, Austin's strategic partnership, on the golf tournament side. And so I think with us being close right there to Fort Moore, and, the veterans and giving back, we're really close to the, the Fort Moore base. And so, the veteran community, and giving back to them, them laying their lives, for this country has just been really important to Realtree and always has been. So, that's been great having Austin as kind of a voice for that organization, on behalf of Realtree and, kind of speaking up for them.
And you had Austin before he was Austin. So let's
Yes.
be clear, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes this is the luck of getting a guy and watching what he blossomed into. I think people had high hopes. I don't think people knew it was going to be quite what has happened. So part of this is, you took the risk and a guy who was in, you said AAA when you met him?
Yeah, but see, Austin, it kind of started, we just started talking on Instagram. And, and I honestly had no idea. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Braves fan, always have been. But I didn't know how big of a player or prospect even Austin was at the time. So, I think we met through social media. He may have came and hunted a couple of months later, and then I think it was 6-7 months later he was called up. But regardless of the success that Austin has had on the field, I mean, Austin has just been a friend, and I
that's
think,
what's important.
And that's what's important.
It's not the stardom, because that doesn't always do it. It's the authentic relationship. If he's
Sure.
the biggest star in the world, but he doesn't know how to speak on behalf of your goods, then it's almost counterintuitive. You're almost hurting yourself. So
yeah, so I mean, he's just been a great ambassador for our brand, and he's hosting some of the road trips shows that we're doing on digital as well. Going to Nebraska, Kansas. He's done that for the last 3 or 4 years with us, and hunting Osceola turkeys down there at spring training. I know that's something he has really enjoyed. The last really that was before he was even called up. I think he shot his first Osceola with us in Florida. So that's just been a great representation of some of the the brand influencers that we have out there.
yeah, give me a couple other ones.
So on the hunting side specifically, Seek One. So Seek One, they're based out of here in Atlanta, but I'd like to think that we have the best in class, whether it's whitetail, turkey, waterfowl. The Seek One guys, I mean, for people living around here, it's suburban bow hunting, but they shoot and hunt some of the biggest deer probably in the state of Georgia. They have, I know a couple of the guys have state records here, from some of those whitetails. So they do a really good job. On the waterfowl side, we have Dr. Duck, public land. That's all they do is public land hunting, which is kind of unique and different. I've hunted with them a few times. Those guys get up really early, trying to claim a spot out there, but they're really good at what they do. We're with Duck Commander. Y'all probably seen Duck Dynasty, but we've been with Duck Commander since 2004. So those are just a few, best in class, for the waterfowl side.
What have you seen now from country music to just the South as a whole? It's exploded outward and taken over pop culture across the country. Has the hunting lifestyle, has that followed country music and a lot of these other things where it's the base is spread? Have you seen that? Have you seen that over the past couple of years? Has it really gone outward and has become that lifestyle?
As far as people wearing camo?
Everything. I mean, I'm a freaking Yankee from New York. Like,
Yeah.
So I see the country music and I see the lifestyle of the South has, from what I knew 20 years ago, has spread itself out like wildfire. And I have to imagine that expansion is part of people are even interested in thinking about hunting for the first time. And have you seen that kind of expansion and that lifestyle grow?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can speak. So we're really good friends with Riley Green. He's on our pro staff too, country music singer. And so I went up to one of his concerts. It's been a few years ago, but in New York. But you wouldn't think of New York as a hunting hub. New York, Pennsylvania.
Upstate New York is
upstate
very
New
built
York.
for. It's trees everywhere. It's hills. It's mountains.
But the concert was in the city. So these people are driving, 2 or 3 hours to come to these concerts. But you're seeing people wear camouflage, which is, kind of, it was surprising, at least for me. But, it just proves that kind of that country music fan, I mean, they're speaking to the same people that we are too, so you're seeing that lifestyle kind of expand and grow, and to see camouflage that far north is pretty cool.
Yeah, I have to imagine. Let's put it this way. I grew up in Queens, and I didn't even have grass. There was no grass in any vicinity. We sat our elementary school, our recess, we were in a pit of concrete, and we threw tennis balls at each other as hard as we could because there was no grass anywhere. Like people are like soccer. I'm like, what I don't even know what grass is. What are you talking about, soccer? Well, look, we got about 2 minutes left. So what I want from each of you is, what does the future hold? And what are you most excited about for the company and for what you see coming in your marketing opportunities?
So I'll just say, my dad, and he's got a team in there as well. I mean, he's still involved on the camouflage patterns. And so we have been working for the last 2 or 3 years, and Jim's been working on his side with the marketing aspect of this, but we are going to be launching a new camouflage pattern that will be our flagship pattern going forward. So that will be in 2024.
That's
So,
ballsy, man.
Yeah.
Do it completely from scratch, and you're going to make that the flagship product. That's
yeah.
pretty good.
So it takes it takes about 2 or 3 years, of testing, development of the pattern, making sure that the pattern looks good on a bunch of different fabrics and substrates. So, that's just been a lot of work on top of what Jim's done with the website. I mean, I don't want to say the name, but the pattern takes up just a lot of.
Shit, we were so close.
Yeah,
we almost got it out of him.
Takes up a lot of people's time in there, so we're excited to launch it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think really with that and all the other effort that's going in from a marketing standpoint and brand standpoint, it's really just being better positioned to tell our story to the consumer. And Bill and Tyler and the family that we have at our company, I think when people have that connection, they feel like, oh, I know those guys, or I grew up watching them. And
word of
for
mouth,
us,
man. The best form of advertising is word of mouth. And if they feel like they know you because a buddy told you, that is the thing. That is honestly what we are always trying to duplicate. It's what social media does, but it's so transactional with social media. We want you to feel like you're the guy that they knew. When you're going to go hunting, you're going to buy this brand, they're going to call you up. They're going to call Tyler and be like, so what do I get? And that word of mouth is powerful.
Yeah,
100%. So I think we're well positioned, and we have really good, authentic relationships with people that it's not so much about we got to go and align with him. It's more about, hey, we just really enjoy hanging out with these people. And, we'll learn something along the way from them as well about maybe new licensees or retail partners we could work with or messaging that we could bring to those consumers. So we get a lot from the relationships, and really that's where it starts, I think. And they're real. They're not just, fake friend type things. These are guys that we enjoy hanging out with, and maybe more than half the time we're talking, it's not about business. It could just be about, hey, what are you up to? What's your family up to? Did you just have a kid? So that makes it
authentic.
That makes it fun.
That's what makes it authentic. All right, so we're about to head into the Braves game. So real quick, Austin's going to hit a home run today, right? Because he knows you guys are out there. That's how this works.
Hopefully 2 home runs.
2 home runs, that's how we know.
Not asking for much.
All right, gentlemen. Jim and Tyler from Realtree, Realtree.com. Check it out. Check out the patterns. Check out the licensee gear. Buy yourself some Crocs. Do what you got to do. Embrace these guys. It's about to get big. You're listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. Thank you for listening.
This morning in North Carolina, wheels are spinning. Determination is winning. A passion is now a thriving business, and it shows no signs of slowing down. How? The power of a conversation, like the one Clint Spiegel had with First Horizon Bank about starting a bike wheel manufacturing facility in Asheville. Now it's not just talk, it's rubber meets road. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Clint. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here. And, it was really, I think, a fascinating discussion with Realtree. And, when I listened to it, obviously a key part of their brand was that website presence.
Yep. And they knew it. And they're smart. And look, Tyler's dad started that company in the 90s. I mean, you're talking, it was a good amount of time ago that brand started really going. So like things have changed a lot since the 90s. So lucky for them, the brand took hold of itself and allowed them to do other things like revise the website. And Jim, the VP of marketing, was talking about just what he expected to get out of the website and what he has. And their biggest concern was people weren't sure if they were coming to the website for content or for e-commerce.
Right.
For content or for e-commerce. How do you blend those things together? It sounds so simple, but if you've ever seen the back end of a website, that is very challenging to do, and that's what they got out of it. So, what have you dealt with?
And it's so important that they want to understand that before they jump into the tactics that they're going about. I mean, and that's, look, in today's digital marketing, a lot of people will assume they know what the answer is to help a customer. But if you don't know, in this case, why people are coming in, right, and what they're looking for.
And that's a path report. That's not hard to find. That path report will show you the tree of where they go, how they come in, where they enter, where they exit. So it's not like you're paying money. This is easy stuff to figure out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, I still do a good bit of advising to, some owners and clients out there. And actually had one that they're working with a pretty good firm, a new firm for them that's looking at their website and their e-commerce platform. And so he asked me to kind of look at their next level proposal. And, again, the things they were thinking about doing made sense. But my comment back to him is, why are people coming in? They're focused on the product.
Before the carriage.
They were focused on the products. And I'm like, okay, but you've got 3 major sectors and which one's more profitable? Which one are you hurting on?
But which one has the room to grow also? Profitable now isn't always which one has the most room to grow sometimes is the
absolutely. So where do you want to focus? And then why are people coming in? Because these are different. This is a playground equipment and then decks and patios.
Still trendy. I don't
Different
care. I know COVID really sped that whole process up,
right.
But I think that COVID carryover are people who are jealous that their friends got it done. I mean, as someone, I've redone a deck and I've built a completely playground from scratch.
Right.
So I was in that space, and it is a much more common thing nowadays than people think it is.
Right. And so why are people coming in? What are they looking for? What do they really want? And those audiences are different. You've got the 30-year-old crowd, right, that have kids. They're looking for a playground.
Is it aspirational? Or are they going to really purchase?
Right.
Are they going to look at yours and go buy it from Costco for like $1,000?
Right.
Yeah,
Patios, decks, those type of things can run the gamut of different types of audiences and things like that. So to me, it was more of, hey, they were really good at doing one thing and helping define product better.
Yeah.
But they didn't step back and ask the question of, who's your audience, who you're trying to accomplish, and why to get them in there. I think they're going to do the right things, but they missed a step.
They were building the descriptions and the product base based on who they thought the audience was going to come to them, as opposed to taking the audience and building the product base to what they know. They were going backwards, in theory. And there's value to that. I think if you are the dominant player in a space and you are a thought and an industry leader, you can do that.
Right.
Most people, your competitor is just going to steal what you did and just readjust it and make it cheaper. So it doesn't work that way anymore.
Right, and I think that's the key part of understanding. This company is, they're actually not in this part of the country. They're up in the Northeast. They're looking to grow and keep building, and some of the things they're going to do is going to allow them to do that. Yeah. But you really need to think about it. Where are they? And there's regional differences, and how you approach that with your e-commerce.
Yeah, and that's another great point. Is it different regionally? I mean, these is all data you have. You cannot imagine that somebody in Atlanta and somebody in Sacramento are doing things the same way. Is it a global strategy? Is it a localized strategy? Are you accounting for exchange rates? I mean, it is really crazy when you think about it, but all of that information is available, is more readily available now than it has ever been. There's less guesswork involved, which brings me to the next point. There still has to be a certain sense of intuition. That's why Tyler and Jim work so well together. Jim is the VP, the new young data guy.
Yeah.
Tyler's dad has run the company. Tyler's been involved in the company since he was a baby. So that combo usually is where we see the best outputs. It really is. Right. You got to have a feel for what made this company special in the first place, but use the data to supplement and reinforce the call to actions and what you're doing.
And with obviously there's a connection there, but also there's not necessarily a yes man type approach to it, and it's challenging and bringing that perspectives. And I think diversity in a lot of different ways really helps a business. Diversity in thought, and diversity in this case maybe of just perspective. And that can be generational perspective.
For sure. We had a great exercise. They actually brought their entire staff in here, and the reason this all came about was we were talking about 6 Day of the Fan. We were kicking off a campaign. So what we did was I went around the room and had every single employee say, tell me something about the company we don't know. Tell us why you like working there, and tell us something that really stands out. Hudson Mason's their endorser. So Hudson now said 30 people talk about how intimately they know this company. Think about how good the spots are going to be now. Think about how it's not about camo, it's about lifestyle. It's about we're in Columbus. It's about we take care of our employees. Think about how strong that messaging is and how many birds you're killing with one stone, as opposed to most marketing, which is let's run a commercial, let's talk about the product, let's break this off here, let's do PR, let's do this.
And you just hit it, going back to product. Look, product's important. You have a product that's viable, but if you can really get into the brand and that feeling of what makes it special, that's where you start to create that that experience. And I'm going to go back a little bit to the clothing analogy I saw. This is the other trend I've seen this year, and probably more than in any recent memory. The length and how quickly the end of summer season sales were on men's apparel, women's apparel, you name it. I don't remember it coming out this soon, and how quickly they went to the bottom on price.
Yeah.
And I've seen some brands that have done very, very well that seem to have a lot of their offering on sale quicker than I've ever seen before. And I think that's because there's some niche brands. I got a lot of friends who wear the Roback brand now. Yep. They've got kind of a niche of what they want to do. And there's some others that I think are starting to hurt the guys that we've seen for a long time. Peter Millar and Johnny O's become very popular.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's a case of they haven't really thought about what people are looking for. And I think there's a change going on in that e-commerce.
I agree.
Of overproduction and assuming what happened during COVID, the fact that no one went to the stores.
And clothes were getting stuck on ships. You couldn't get through the holiday season, so you had to hold them for the next holiday season. You knew this glut was going to catch up. I also think it's a microcosm of the influencer trend. And I think out of all things, apparel is the one where there's micro influencers. If used the right way with a content strategy, can be unbelievably powerful. And like, again, you buy clothes, your intention is, you're not going to wear this for 10 years. Like, you're within a trend. So, as long as you're not spending too much money. The other thing is, why would you ever buy anything full price? I mean, let's be honest. Why would you ever buy anything full price? Why would you?
Yeah, why did I notice that the end of season sales start early? Because I usually know when they start.
Seasons are different, dude. Summer in Atlanta is very different than summer in Buffalo. Summer here starts in April. Summer there starts, if you're lucky, in mid-July. So, like, that's also another thing. It's crazy to think about. But what if the South is just more prominently figured into all this? So they adjust seasonality based on influx of the Southern.
Golf shirts we can wear in November, so they're already there.
You
Guess
can
what?
in Buffalo. You cannot in Buffalo. That's a lie. They probably can.
Yeah, well, you can. It's just under a sweater at that time of year. So, no, I think it's really interesting discussions today. Definitely. How can people learn a little bit more about Realtree?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to say this the simplest way. Just Google it. Because for you, it might be you're finding out that they're with Crocs or they do hunting. Go to the website, but there's so much content that they do. You have friends that wear it. If you're in the hunting game, you probably know about it already. But just embrace this and look at it for what it is for you. It doesn't have to be product-based. It could be content-based. They do hunting trips. They got Austin Riley. That's how we met it, through Austin Riley, through celebrity-based and influencers. Just embrace their brand, and you'll probably get something different out of it. I know it's not the usual answer. Someone gives some specific thing. But for these guys and what they do, I think go into Google, type Realtree, and find out what it is for you is the best way to do it.
No, it's a great story about how brand can really drive and set your strategy for other things. So, great episode. You've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. We'll see you next week.
This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.